Hey everyone, welcome to episode 15 of Generation GC. My name is Molly and I'm your host, and this week I'm talking to my good friend Matt Drezdzon about Cars Full of People from Youth Authority. We've got a great episode lined up for you today and I'm super excited for you to hear it. As a reminder, please visit blacklivesmatters.car.co for information on how you can help in the Black Lives Matter and anti-police brutality movement. And also check out allcards.card.co for even more info and links, since there's so much going on in the world right now. And at these cards, you can find information on protests, information on where to donate. If you can't donate money, there are videos to watch, playlists to stream, where if you check these out, they will donate via streaming and ad revenue. I think that's super cool. There's also info on how to educate yourself, as well as petitions you can sign. I will link a petition in the show notes that demands justice for Breonna Taylor. Please, please sign it, share it, spread the word. On a very different note, Generation GC stickers are here. They are in my apartment. They're holographic. You've probably seen the pictures on social media by now. They look so cool. But if you want a sticker, two things you can do. Number one, you can support the show on Anchor. That helps me sustain the show, make sure that I have the right equipment, microphones, headphones, and just helps me do things like get these stickers printed and get them mailed to you guys. Or you can donate to any organization listed at blacklivesmatters.card.co. And, I thought that would be a good way to encourage you guys to get involved. So support the show or make a donation, and then send me a screenshot of your support or donation, as well as your mailing address. Shoot me a DM, Generation GC Pod on Twitter or Instagram, or email generationgcpod@gmail.com, and I will mail you stickers. I'll also occasionally tweet about other ways you guys can get stickers, whether that's other organizations that come up that you can donate to, or good deeds that you can do, such as writing to folks in retirement homes, or ways that you guys can help spread the word about this show. Lots of ways to get involved. I don't want to just, sell stickers. I want to make it kind of fun for you guys. And who knows? Maybe I'll get some other little merch type giveaways made. We will just have to see. Thank you guys for tuning in, and now on to our episode. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 15 of the Generation GC podcast. My name is Molly Hudelson, and I'm your host. I'm going to be talking to you today about Cars Full of People from Youth Authority, and my guest today is Matt Drezdzon. On our last regular episode, we talked about Let the Music Play from Cardiology. We also had a bonus episode a few days ago talking about Anxiety from Greatest Remixes. Next week, to follow Youth Authority, we'll be talking about a song from Generation RX. Now, my guest today, Matt, is originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and he currently lives in New York City. Matt and I actually attended Case Western Reserve University together. He graduated two years after me, right?
Yes.
And he currently works at an advertising agency. He's always enjoyed exploring new music and going to live shows, and is looking forward to all of the new music this year and to go to shows again. Matt, hello.
Hello, Molly. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. I'm excited to dig into this bread that I just baked and is cooling on my countertop, and by the time we finish recording, I think the bread will be cool enough to handle and eat.
I think we all have to know, what kind of bread is it?
Miracle no knead bread.
Okay.
Yeah, like you just stir flour and yeast and salt and then some water together, let it rise overnight, and then you bake it in a Dutch oven.
That sounds good.
Oh, it's delicious, and it's quite easy. So there's been several loaves of that lately. So yeah, Cars Full of People. It's our song this week. It's track 10 on Good Charlotte's 6th album, Youth Authority. It follows The Outfield, and then after this song comes War. And we will, when we get more into the song, we are definitely going to talk about the ordering, the track listing on this album. But this is kind of a deep cut. Like, I haven't found any record of Good Charlotte playing Cars Full of People live. I looked on setlist.fm, which has a really cool tool that I've definitely been using to my advantage. But setlist.fm has a tool that basically ranks all of an artist's songs. So it'll tell you, like, oh, they've played the anthem, 5,000 times, whatever, right? Oh, they've played My Bloody Valentine this many times. And then you can click and see, like, all the shows they've played that song at. I also searched on YouTube and Google. I haven't found any videos, so I don't want to say that they've definitely never played this song live, but if they have, it's super rare. Have you ever heard this live?
I have not. The last time I saw Good Charlotte, 2018 at Terminal 5. I don't believe I've heard it since then.
Yeah, I don't think. And I kind of get it because it's like a deep cut. It's not a single. And there's so many songs on this album that are just live show ready. Either they're super sentimental or they're just really powerful, rocking out.
Right.
But I feel like this would be a really cool fit to hear acoustic. Like just straight up Benji and Joel, one acoustic guitar. But I could also hear like an orchestral version. And I'm also, so again, we'll talk more about this, the different versions I'm imagining of this song, none of which actually exist yet. But I think a hardcore cover, like I'm really wilding out, but I think a hardcore cover or like a hip hop cover of this song could be awesome. Like I think that could be pretty rad.
Well, it's interesting because it definitely kind of fits into quite a bit of different genres, which is pretty cool. It's pretty universal song. I think you can kind of do what you want with it, which, opens the doors for lots of opportunities with it.
Exactly. But before we dive into the song itself, Matt, I want to help our listeners get to know you and your music taste.
Okay.
So how did you first get into music and like start discovering music for yourself? Like what were the first artists for you?
So the very first CD I remember getting, it was about 1999, 2000 or so, when McDonald's had, you would get your Happy Meal, and it would be a Britney Spears NSYNC. Like, it had, like, 3 songs from each on the CD. So that's, like, the first time I ever remember, like, having a CD. I was a bit too young for cassettes growing up in the 90s, but...
Yeah, so I had cassettes, like, my first Spice Girls album was a cassette, but after that I got CDs. Yeah, they kind of came in,
I think, about when I was born or so. So I had some cassettes of like I think I had like ABBA and Cher and some of those fun classics that I grew up with. But the first time I remember listening to a CD and enjoying was NSYNC and Britney Spears, and then that was about 1999, 2000, and then going into that, I was slowly entering middle school, and that was when kind of pop punk was breaking into the mainstream.
Right.
And so I was a bit too young for The Young and the Hopeless, but when I was in middle school, The Chronicles of Life and Death was coming out, and that that was one of the first pop punk albums that I really got into and kind of identified with. At that time too, there were other big bands, New Found Glory, Simple Plan, My Chemical Romance was bursting onto the scene. So I really fell in love with a lot of the bands in the pop punk, the alternative, the emo space as it was emerging, because I really felt like there was music written for me,
Yeah. I think that was, definitely for me, and I think for a lot of people that, and not just Good Charlotte, but any of the bands you mentioned, My Chem, New Found Glory, Simple Plan, people felt like this music was written for them.
Yes.
Like, you felt like you got it. What introduced you to Chronicles? Like, how did you find that album? Was it hearing it on the radio? Was it like a friend at school?
It was friends at school. I think it was a friend on the bus every day. I actually got a lot of my early music recommendations on the bus to and from school every day. Like, it was the first time I heard like Black Parade by MCR, a lot of Good Charlotte. I got into 30 Seconds to Mars from Friends That Way. So yeah,
Yeah. So I think that's huge. And in everything I've done as a music journalist, like I've been interviewed a few times, I've been on other people's podcasts, and they'll always ask me how I find out about new bands.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I have a lot of publicists and even with this podcast, right? Publicists that are reaching out to me, pitching, cover this artist. Oh, this artist, likes Good Charlotte, have them on the podcast.
Right.
But you really can't underestimate the value of that recommendation from a friend, because a friend knows you, right? They trust you, and probably you have a lot in common with that friend.
That's why even today, word of mouth marketing is just so prevalent, like whether it's music, whether it's for, like a consumer product, whatever. I mean,
yeah,
you trust your friends, you trust your friends to have your best interest in mind, give you something good.
Yeah. I mean, and we could, without making this a marketing podcast, because this is not a marketing podcast, but
advertising.
But like, I think that's also why the influencer sponsorships and such, and, I do have a sponsor for this podcast right now, which you all will hear the ad at some point, but it's like, okay, I trust this famous person or this person on the internet. I trust their opinion, kind of like how you trust your friend's opinion, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to try this thing that they are suggesting that I try. So you have seen Good Charlotte live a couple times.
Yes.
What was the first time you saw them live?
The very first time was the soundtrack of your summer tour in 2008. It was Boys Like Girls, Good Charlotte, Metro Station, and the main.
Oh my god!
The main, and I'm not sure if it was the main's first national tour, but it was one of their first.
Yeah, that. First of all, what an encapsulation of 2008! Right?
Absolutely amazing. Take me back.
What did you wear to that? Did you have like an appropriately neon kind of shirt?
What did I wear? Just 2008 was the first year where I was seriously kind of saving up my money and trying to go to concerts as often as I could.
Right.
What did I wear? I mean, I was definitely a Hot Topic kid at that point.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I think I had a couple Boys Like Girls shirts at that point, because they had just come out with that album with Thunderously, which gave the whole name for the tour.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so I remember having a few different shirts from Hot Topic, and I think I even went there and bought that album on release day, which was, a cool experience then.
Yeah, I know. I haven't bought a lot of albums on release days, because I think also, like, personally, with stuff I've been super excited about, I've like pre-ordered, right?
Yes.
But it is really cool going to buy things on release day. I've definitely bought like some Taylor Swift albums on release day.
It's just fun, and like if you love the artist enough, like it kind of gets you in the mood for the album. Like maybe you've heard it once, maybe you've heard it 40 times by now, maybe you've never listened to it so far, but you know you love the artist, you're going to support them. So it's just a cool kind of experience, if you will.
Exactly. So you've seen Good Charlotte several times. Because, this song we're talking about today is on Youth Authority, which is their first album coming back from hiatus. Yes. What was your first time seeing Good Charlotte post hiatus?
My first time seeing Good Charlotte post hiatus was at Terminal 5 here in 2018 here in New York.
Okay, so that was even by the time they'd released Generation RX.
Yeah, and I know Good Charlotte did a few other tours since then. Yeah. I was kind of at a transition period. I graduated college in 2015 in Cleveland. I was moving here, kind of getting established.
Sure,
getting my job and everything. So by 2018, I was like, you know what? We need some Good Charlotte. Like, we cannot go on like this anymore.
I love that. So I want to talk about what you've been listening to lately. I mean, for reference, so to everyone listening, Matt and I did go to college together, but we didn't meet at school. We actually met at a local show in Ohio. phone calls from home. I think they were from like Boston. They were supposed to play, but they had to cancel. So it was like 3 or 4 kind of random local bands. I mean, you've lived in New York since graduation, and I'm curious, like your view, but from my experience, I feel like there's a little less of the quote unquote local band scene in New York than you would get in the Midwest or even in New Jersey, like suburban.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think a lot of New York's local scene, I think a lot of it comes out of Brooklyn, Queens, some out of Manhattan, but I think in Brooklyn, Queens, you have a lot of kind of arts culture, big music scenes over there. I mean, Manhattan has some really nice venues. Brooklyn has a lot of fun venues like Warsaw, Brooklyn Steel, that sort of thing. I think the environment in Brooklyn and Queens, just outside of the city, kind of just gives people, I think, what they need to kind of explore and make music. And obviously they can come to the city for shows. They can go to New Jersey, anything they want. But I'd probably agree that it's maybe not as full blown as maybe in New Jersey or,
even Long Island, I think.
Long Island. Yeah. We both know, in Cleveland as well.
Yes. So Matt, what have you been listening to lately? Like, how has your music taste shifted over the years?
So I actually used to be like, I'm only going to listen to pop punk, alternative,
right.
Emo rock. Like I am narrow-minded. I still have a little bit of a soft spot for the Ava Gold greatest hits, but pop punk, emo, not interested. But then it was in college where actually 2 genres came to my attention. Number 1, musicals.
Yes. And number 2?
Number 2, K-pop.
Yes. So I knew that you were super into musicals in college because you would like go visit New York for a weekend to, see a couple shows. But tell me, like, being a kid from Ohio, going to school in Cleveland, how did the musical theater thing come into your world?
I don't know. I think because I think it kind of started out with kind of paying attention to the voices I was listening to and the bands and the artists I already liked, and then just recognizing, you know what, they're actually talented. They have a lot of good things to say. What else is kind of like this? And
right.
Musicals, obviously, it's not always the people writing the songs performing it. It can be like in a Lin-Manuel Miranda case and that sort of thing, but you have,
it's usually not like that.
Yeah, but you have these passionate, talented people who are doing a show 7-8 times a week. Very, very talented, putting their heart and soul out there to not only entertain you, but I think also connect with you, which is very interesting for me because I was kind of like, oh, this is, in that aspect, kind of like the music I already listened to. So it kind of just seemed like a good natural step at that point.
That's a great connection. I love that story. So can you tell me a little bit about K-pop and because I didn't realize that you had been into K-pop for kind of several years now.
Oh yeah. Well, I think K-pop stems from growing up loving Japanese culture. I was a big anime kid. I loved reading manga all throughout high school. I just liked the fantasy, whimsy elements that I maybe didn't necessarily see growing up here from cartoons and everything. Of course, big SpongeBob fan, still am to this day. So SpongeBob rules. But I think it just kind of stemmed from taking an interest in Japan. And at that point, I was like, Japan's pretty interesting. What else is out there? What other cultures are kind of interesting? And that stemmed from, I think one night I went into a deep K-pop hole on YouTube, watching everyone's music videos and everything. And then I was listening to it and I was like, you know what? This is pretty cool. It's different from the pop music we would have in the US. Oh, yeah. It's not that different, but it is definitely different. And I think a refreshing take on the genre. So I was like, you know what? I don't speak Korean, but this is really, really good music.
So in my very limited understanding of K-pop, something I do appreciate about it is like I feel like quite often, like, pop artists in the US will, like, basically try to be something, not, kind of try to be something they're not, like, try to be, you know, not pop and not bubblegum and not produced. And then you have K-pop, which is, like, so unabashedly, this is a song that is meant to fill a stadium, and we are going to have a choreographed, synchronized dance routine, and we're going to wear these incredible costumes, and This is exactly what this is.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's talk about Cars Full of People. So when Youth Authority came out back in 2016, I remember talking to you about the album and our first reactions, and I remember you had really been digging this song, so I thought it'd be a fun podcast. What do you like about this song? What stuck out to you about it at first?
I'll kind of start with the album as a whole, because I think looking at this album, I think the message that Good Charlotte's trying to get across is largely about beating the odds, making your dreams come true, not necessarily putting yourself into a box, not being held down, like walk your own way, define your own self. I think this song on the album 100% encapsulates that.
Yeah.
With the lyrics, it's very, very much, to me, I think about living your life not by another person's definitions. I mean, you have the lyrics kind of talking about, you know, being, you know, alluding to maybe being in a car amongst a group of people with someone special. That could be, you know, a friend, a loved one, family member, that sort of thing. I think it's kind of universal that it could be any of those for you, and just kind of, you know, going on that journey together.
Yeah. So we will talk about what the band has said about this song, but I'm glad that, like, we're kind of sharing our own views and interpretations of it first. When I will admit that when I first heard this song, and really for a while, I didn't necessarily see it as, like, about another person. Like, I kind of saw it as this sort of alone in a crowded room kind of thing, right? Like, you just see everyone around you and nobody kind of understands you. Getting ready for this podcast, I feel like I've grown kind of a more positive view of it, like really seeing, okay, I feel like there is that, you know, that person by your side, and yeah, okay, everyone's moving around you, nobody sees you, but I think what this song is getting at is that, like, it's okay. It doesn't matter that nobody else understands you, and that nobody else is, like, following the path that you're on. And on that note, I really like the track listing of this album. I mean, we had an episode 7 of the show, we talked about the outfield, which is about finding, feeling the outfield. I think it's about feeling your whole life like you've been an outsider, and then you find that person who is kind of also an outsider, and then it's like we're kind of unstoppable together. And I think this song has a lot of very similar things, or very similar themes. Would you agree?
Definitely, yeah.
So I think makes... No, go on.
No, I mean, definitely. Looking at this album cohesively, like, I honestly, when it came out, I remember finding it just very refreshing. I mean, it's all the themes we've come to love from Good Charlotte over the years, but at the same time offering such notes of positivity and hope and everything. And yeah. I remember when it first came out, definitely needing that. So being forever thankful for that.
Yeah, I think that hope is a huge part of Good Charlotte. We talked about, I talked about this when I interviewed Billy, actually right before Generation RX, that he felt that he always wanted listeners to come away from Good Charlotte's albums with a sense of hope. Like, you can get through this, and maybe you don't see that right away, but you can and you will. I feel like, in a way, I feel like there's a certain theme that I think has kind of prevailed through all of their music, really through the years, is just that idea of not caring what other people think, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in this song, it's, you know, you have your person maybe that you're with, and so you don't really care what other people say, and you're just trying to sort of stick by that person. But on their older records, I mean, how many of their older songs were about just not fitting in and kind of wanting to walk their own path? And I don't want your 9 to 5. I don't want your boring life, you know?
Yeah, right. I mean, early Good Charlotte. I mean, you're walking straight out the door with little things like going to everything, everything they have now. And I mean, I think if you look at all their albums, I think you could bundle them honestly together as a big cohesive unit, because they all have, I think, fantastic themes. I've always felt like Good Charlotte's there. You know, at the end of the day, in the darkest day, you want to go kind of to the artists, the people who kind of make you feel special, who make you feel like they're there for you. And I think Good Charlotte has definitely been there for me.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I've definitely felt like that. And anyone who's listened to the show clearly knows how much they mean. But one thing I also wanted to share about this song, and I'm really curious if you share this interpretation at all.
Okay.
So, and this is really a big theme on this record as a whole. So there's a few songs on this record where they're talking about love and us and staying together or getting back together. And on the surface level, about a relationship, romantic relationship, you know, so to say. But I have seen a lot of this record as actually about the band getting back together. Like, you know, in this song, when they talk about people coming and going, bands and artists coming and going, you know, you have this song that's about, okay, I'm here with my person I'm in love with, and I'm just trying to stick by their side, and nobody else really gets it, but that's okay. They'll go on and try to fit in and do their thing. You know, Good Charlotte's always been about their fans, right? But critics don't necessarily get them. A lot of the world doesn't necessarily get them. So what do you think of that interpretation?
I think definitely. I think I definitely kind of thought of it that way. I mean, even just looking at the chorus, you know, it kind of goes, they said we were lost, that we had no future, but you said hold on, we stayed together. Yeah. And then kind of bumping off that note that you just mentioned, these cars full of people, they'll never know what we're about. So that could definitely be from the critics, people who haven't necessarily done a deep dive, don't understand. But I can definitely see this, you know, I mean, like, you know what? Good Charlotte's back. We stayed together. We defied the odds.
Exactly. And I'm sure that's, you know, totally paralleled things that have gone on in their personal lives without, you know, speculating or anything on their personal lives. But yeah, I think that really to me was the side or the interpretation of the song and of a lot of this album that was kind of what I first grasped onto. But of course, you know, that could totally be colored by it being, you know, me and me just
right
being so excited to hear new Good Charlotte again. I really love that it comes after The Outfield on the album, because I think The Outfield and Cars Full of People really, and I don't know why I didn't put this together before we were getting ready to record, but I think The Outfield and Cars Full of People really have such similar themes. Like, you know, the Outfield is like, you found your person, and then Cars Full of People is like, okay, we're here. Everyone else is moving around, and they're going to keep moving and doing their thing, but that's okay.
And that's the thing too, like this album, you could almost think of it in terms of like a concept opera album, at least in my opinion, in that regard, for the storytelling. I mean, like it kind of, for me at least, you know, starting with life changes, makeshift love, just going to the end. I think for me personally, I love the whole album. I love the back half of the album a lot. I think that's where it really comes together for me personally the most. I just really enjoyed the journey, honestly. I remember being so excited when the album dropped, listening to it a few times, and just being excited. I don't want to say being excited for the album to end, but being excited for the songs at the end of the album.
Hear that reward come out.
Yeah, hear how the journey ended. Hear where Good Charlotte was at the time.
Yeah. One thing I did note about like the track listing though, so this song has a pretty long like instrumental outro that kind of sounds like it would go into like a softer, pretty kind of song, like perhaps Moving On. But instead of going right into Moving On, they go into War, which is this like very intense, kind of heavy almost track.
Yes.
So I don't know, like, I don't know. I feel like I think it would make this record feel almost not too sentimental, but it would almost feel like it's too reflective if you went from The Outfield, Castle of People, Moving On, right? And I think War kind of breaks that up and makes it kind of a more interesting journey. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'd kind of argue that War still kind of keeps the themes of the album. Well,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about this album, not only in the story and the messaging, but just kind of how Good Charlotte tries to break the mold a little bit, tries to try different things that they maybe haven't experimented with before, but still staying true to Good Charlotte. They're not changing their sound. They're not trying to. I don't think they're trying to be anything that they don't think they are, but even so, I mean, like War kind of talks about it's always darkest before the light.
Yeah.
Kind of those themes kind of reoccurring that we just talked about from
totally
Hearts Full of People,
it's
Moving On
like,
as well.
But War is a less like The Outfield, Castle of People, and Moving On are very like I think sentimental and nostalgic kind of.
Yes. And
I will definitely agree that War fits like the story of this album, but the tone is a little less. I feel like it's a little less nostalgic.
I agree with that too.
So, I did want to mention what the band had said about the song. I like talking about kind of our own interpretations of songs before we get into what the band has said. So Benji had done like track by track behind each song of the record, and to paraphrase, he essentially said that it's if you're with someone and you have real true love, it doesn't matter if anyone else gets it or what they say. When you have that thing that you share with someone, that's yours. And it doesn't matter that no one will know what you're about. Just hold on to that. Don't give it up for some instant gratification. Hold on to that. Stay true to that. He said the song's about love and friendship and relationships, but he's sure you could apply it to lots of things. So I feel, and what I said was just paraphrased, but I feel like he is implying that, you can definitely apply this song to things outside of specifically a romantic relationship per se.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I did want to ask what, we talked about like kind of the themes of this record, but what were you expecting from them post hiatus, and how did this song fit with what you expected or what you were looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, whenever a musician goes on hiatus, you always want them to come back to make music, but at the same time, you want them to take care of themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Make sure they're happy. I mean, we were lucky enough that before Good Charlotte came back, we still got Madden Brothers music.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. So I don't think I necessarily had any different expectations than I normally would from a Good Charlotte album. I mean, as a big Good Charlotte fan,
but they would like switch it up for different albums. So I almost felt like it was hard to know what to expect until they kind of told you, okay, this is what this album's going to sound like.
but I like that. I find that so refreshing. You're not just gonna get the same thing rehashed. You're not just gonna get the same 12 songs again. I mean, there's so many bands that I love now to this day. Like you can look at Paramore, for example. I mean, Paramore really changed up their sound on their last album. No one saw that coming, but I love it. I think it's great. Haley Williams has a new album out right now that's even a further departure from
the
sound that it's so good.
Okay, so let's take a brief Good Charlotte break to talk about the Haley Williams album. Matt knows this quite well, but like I will admit that for a long time I just kind of didn't get Paramore. I just never was a fan, and it wasn't for lack of exposure so much as lack of like taking the time to kind of really check them out. And so I just like never was a huge Paramore fan, but I like this album a lot. And like from hearing the Haley Williams solo stuff, I've since gone back to a couple old Paramore records and been like, okay, what was I doing? I was really missing out on all things Paramore for so long. Favorite song on the Haley Williams record?
Favorite album or favorite song? I really like Rose's Lotus Violet Iris, and Watch Me While I Bloom is fun.
I think it was My Friend was the song that I like. But it's a great album overall.
It's really good. Props to her. It's amazing.
Recommendation to all listeners: check out Haley Williams' new album, Petals for Armor.
You won't be sorry.
Oh yeah. So back to Good Charlotte and Youth Authority. So there was an interview on Billboard back in 2019 with the twins where essentially they said that with this album, 2 songs on this album were only there because they felt they had to include them. So when I first read that, that there were 2 songs on this album that were only there because they felt they had to, essentially, and that's obviously paraphrased, I'm not directly quoting here. When I first read that, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe this was one of those songs, but now I'm kind of not really sure because although it's a deep cut that like never really got played live, it feels like a pretty special song. And then as we will talk about in a few minutes, the reviews liked this song a lot. So I don't know. And I'm curious what songs were not ones I guess they were initially stoked on, but who knows? And I guess you never know like what is gonna go over well.
Right. Never know until you actually put it out there.
Yeah. So Matt, do you have any like personal memories you want to share about this song or anything you'd like to share about how you personally relate to it?
Yeah, I mean, coming back to this album, I can definitely relate to the song if you take the lyrics at face value in a literal sense. I mean, living here in New York, walking around, it's just endless flurry of cabs, Ubers, Lyfts, all those other ride-sharing services and everything. But just a flurry of everyone kind of beating to the march of their own drums. They're all going to work, doing their own thing, running errands, whatever. So you can definitely feel, I think, from your interpretation, kind of feeling like you're like a small fish in a big pond. In that sense. So I think kind of taking the lyrics at face value, that's maybe something that I've kind of always come back to for comfort and to remind myself that there's a bigger picture, that it may feel like that sometimes, whether you're in a crowded room or you feel alone in a city or wherever you live. But at the same time, if you have a dream or a goal or something, you have the ability to seize it and make it happen, which that's kind of a theme that I need to revisit for my own self, I will admit. So I like going back to the song and kind of reminding myself that you know what, it's okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and just keep on trucking, get through the bad times, and then the good times will be that much better.
So it's coming up on 5 years since you moved to New York, because you were in New York probably like, I want to say it was like 48 hours after you graduated college or something.
Oh yeah. I was like, okay, I live here now.
So why New York? Like, because you weren't moving for like a job, right? Like there wasn't like.
Yeah. So what I did, I don't recommend that anyone do, but but yeah, I mean, so I grew up in a smaller town, never moved, lived there for 18 years, went to the same school system my whole life. Then went to college in Cleveland, which was nicer because I was in the middle of the city and I could, I had
our campus was a good location, I think.
Yeah, you were immersed in the city, but at the same time, still kind of gave you like a nice community. Yes, which I definitely appreciated. And then, obviously, taking the Health Line or the train, 20 minutes downtown, you could do literally anything you wanted to do. But I just liked having that freedom of being able, to have not only everything at my fingertips, but just be able to kind of explore myself and, what do I need to give myself? What are my wants? What are my needs? Yeah. So my first time coming to New York, I came here to see the Book of Mormon musical by myself on an overnight Greyhound, just for that.
Love that.
So kind of seeing that show and kind of seeing the city, at least from the tourist side of things, I was kind of like, you know what, this is pretty cool. This is somewhere I could see myself living. And then graduating, I got a room up in Harlem. I took another overnight Greyhound bus. Didn't have a job lined up, but I was able to get a job a few weeks after I was here. So that was pretty nice. And yeah, I haven't looked back ever since.
I love that. And New York is definitely a place where I think a lot of people are kind of trying to make their dreams come true and working really hard, and it doesn't necessarily have that like community vibe that maybe you'd get in like a smaller town or somewhere in the Midwest. But I think New York is definitely a lot of people doing their own thing.
But at the same time though, I would say maybe not so much community, but like you remember at the end of the day, like everyone here is trying to make something happen. Everyone here is trying to succeed, working hard. So at the end of the day, like, anyone you walk past on the street, is working hard to make it here, and that makes it exciting every day.
Yeah, I love that. That's great energy, I'm sure. So let's dive into what some critics have said about this song. And okay. Anyone who's a fan of Good Charlotte, anyone who has read any criticism about Good Charlotte, anyone who's listened to the show knows that Good Charlotte is not necessarily loved by critics. And critics do not like Good Charlotte. Most of them. Like, critics have kind of never really gotten what they're about. They've always been a band that has had such dedicated fans. Critics have not gotten what they're about. So I actually had a lot of fun researching this song because I found that a lot of critics named it as a track they really dug. Mm-hmm. Starting off with Consequence of Sound. So they named it as one of the essential tracks on Youth Authority alongside 40 Ounce Dream. The quote, they said, additionally, Cars Full of People is a comparatively mellow, genuinely sweet and optimistic interlude built around a rising beat that wouldn't feel out of place in a folk rock song. And, Consequence of Sound is definitely maybe not like Pitchfork level, but I think Consequence of Sound is not, they're not easy. They can be tough critics. So that was, I think, accurate interpretation. And then May the Rock Be With You, which is a cool little website, said that the song was almost country. So I'll read the quote in a second, but I want to know, Matt, like, did you pick up on this? Like this kind of country folk vibe for the song? Because to be perfectly honest, I did not put it together until I was getting ready for this episode and reading a whole bunch of reviews and such. I guess I just never thought of that. Like I knew, Good Charlotte has always had an appreciation for hip hop and pop, but but now I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah, there's totally like country and folk vibes. But was that something you picked up on?
Yeah, I think just in the range of the orchestrations, definitely. I mean, like you start off the track with the really nice interlude, going to the lyrics, and like I definitely had a thought at one point. I was like, maybe slow it down ever so slightly, and you could just fit this song into once. You want to add another song to the movie once, throw it in there.
Yeah. So here's the quote from May the Rock Be With You. They said, even a song like Cars Full of People, which is almost worthy of a country label, fits well onto the album. It's songs like this that break up the regular sound as to not be too samey and really gives you a sense of artistry here, meaning they can change it up and do it well. So yeah, I think that says it pretty well, the idea that it breaks up the regular sound. But honestly, like, as I've been thinking about this, I need a banjo version of this song. I mean, that like intro little riff is begging to be played on the banjo or the mandolin. Oh yeah. What I wrote down is Judah and the Lion meets Mumford and Sons meets like Florida Georgia Line.
Done.
Like, please, like that would be oh my God, that would be so sick. And Judah and the Lion, like I interviewed them. It's actually coming up on a year ago. I interviewed Judah, and like they also are a band that has a really strong kind of relationship with their fans. So I had a lot of fun diving into that with them. So I want to see like a Judah and the Lion, Good Charlotte crossover. I think that's what I'm demanding.
I'd even love to see just if they had a big orchestra or strings or something, like that could be a fun interpretation of it, I think.
There was, what song was it? But there was one song that I found a really cool orchestral version. It was like Benji and Joel and a little string section. I think it was when Benji and Joel were doing The Voice Australia, and that was really fun. And I think that could be fun for this.
That was fun.
That would be fun. Rock Sins wrote a review of this album. They said that, you know, while slower albums, so I'm slightly paraphrasing here, but they said that while the slower tracks don't always work, the Madden brothers have an ear for a melody, and the slower ballad type songs, Cars Full of People and Life Can't Get Much Better, are standouts on the album, with powerful vocal performances and happy-go-lucky choruses that feature a positive outlook on the world and offering up some of the most emotional and inspirational moments on the album. Would you say this is happy-go-lucky?
I think it can be seen that way a little bit. I mean, I think people can naturally think that based on you know, that opening riff that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Everything like that. So I can definitely see that kind of more in a more positive atmosphere. I could definitely see where that comes from. I think for me personally, not as much, but I could definitely see just because of how diverse the music and everything is, that I think it could definitely kind of adapt into that space.
Yeah. I guess maybe this is me being a little picky and taking issue with the phrase happy-go-lucky, because I feel like the phrase happy-go-lucky kind of implies like a naiveness in a way, but I think you have a good point though with, like, you know, the intro of the song and how that kind of fits in. Cleveland.com also reviewed this record. They did not like this song. They called this song a forgettable dashboard confessional knockoff.
Absolutely not.
Right. But here's what I got to thinking about this is like, okay, so is this, you know, a country folk song, or is it like acoustic emo song? I would disagree that this song is forgettable, clearly, but I could kind of see, so, okay, Dashboard Confessional, hands down, was the first Dashboard song I heard. And I'd heard the acoustic version before I heard the sort of full band version. And I could see a version of this song done in that kind of way. You're hesitant. You're like, no.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing for me. I think this song works in a lot of different ways. Any kind of style or instruments or genre you kind of want to customize it to. Like, I honestly think it could be really good. I mean, so we're talking about like country, folk, emo. Why can't it be? Why can't it be both of those things? Maybe Good Charlotte invented, you know, a new genre. They're pioneers in this new emo folk, emo country genre that we didn't even know existed.
Well, too relevant to mention is Dan and Shay, who are a country, definitely very pop, you know, leaning, but a country duo who love emo. Like, a lot of the members of their live band are former emo bands. Yes. And they took the band Camino on tour. So maybe Dan and Shay needs to cover this song.
That'd be cool.
That would be very cool. That would be very cool. The last review I wanted to mention, and I was like really stoked to see like so many, and these weren't even all of them, but so many different outlets that specifically mentioned this song. Cryptic Rock gave the album 5 out of 5, and they talked about really liking the dreamy texture and bright melodies of this song. So that was kind of fun. I was definitely like, I was really like pleasantly surprised, I think, to find the reviews, so many reviews that called out this song. Because with the deep cuts of an album, quite often, like what I found in even doing my research is that a lot of reviews won't necessarily grab on to like some of the deep cuts, and there will be some songs that just like nobody has written about.
Right.
But that was fun. So Matt, I want to know, how has this song held up for you over time?
Yeah, I mean, I still get the same feelings I did when I first listened to it. I mean, I talked earlier about, you know, like living here in the city, kind of feeling both of our interpretations of it. You know, sometimes feeling alone, but remembering at the end of the day that everyone else here might feel that as well. You know, I'm working hard to make my own things happen. And even so, like just trying to stay positive every day. I mean, especially with all that's happening right now in the world, for myself, that's something I'm trying to get better about and hold myself accountable for as well. So, I mean, especially in that now, you know, I'm working from home, so I kind of have some nice Spotify opportunities to listen to music. So coming back, revisiting this album has definitely, you know, helped me get through all this.
Yeah, I'm glad that this album and this song has helped you a lot. I will say personally that like when I first heard this record, like I really did not grab onto this song, and I don't really know why, but I almost feel like, you know, I grabbed so strongly onto The Outfield. I said it on the episode about The Outfield, but that might be my favorite Good Charlotte song, and it's so hard to say to pick one, but
absolutely
right. But you know, I almost feel like, okay, maybe because I grabbed so hard onto The Outfield, here's a song about a very similar theme that maybe I was like I really liked that song, so obviously I was like a tough critic, and I was like, okay, no, this is the song that's about that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
But I have like kind of appreciated how, I think, sentimental and nostalgic it is, like so much more, which is fun. And I am so wanting all these different versions of this song now.
Yes.
Like they do, you know, on their tours, if you do the VIP, they'll play a few songs acoustic, you know, usually based off request. But I would love to hear this song. That'd be so much fun.
So we're getting VIP. We're making signs.
Oh my gosh.
Cars full of people, acoustic. It's gonna happen. I think 2021 might be the year.
Oh my gosh. If I ever got to make a Good Charlotte acoustic set list, oh man. Oh man. Where would that start? Where would that end? That would be something else. So Matt, what has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed, or has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Good Charlotte was one of the first bands I got into, especially when I was starting to explore pop punk in the early mid 2000s or so. So they've always held a special place in my heart, kind of almost feeling like I grew up with them, and, I couldn't have necessarily gotten to where I am today without the help of them and all the other artists I kind of grew up listening to regularly. So I have to thank them for that, because it's been a heck of a ride, and having Good Charlotte there, having, all this good music that made me feel like I am someone, and made me feel like, there are people out there who care and that I matter to, makes it really special for me.
Oh, I love that, Matt. That's awesome. I love that. Do you have any last words about Cars Full of People, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, of course, for having me on your podcast, but I also just want to thank Good Charlotte for everything. Good Charlotte, if you're listening, if you're out there somewhere, thank you for everything over the years. Cars Full of People is just such a special song with such a good message, and just fits into that whole diverse album as well. So very thankful to have that song. I think 2021 is the year where we're not going to get just one, we're not going to get just two, we're going to get a ton of different versions of the song.
Yes. Matt, to end this off, something that I decided I think would be really fun to start doing. Can you leave the listeners with a song recommendation? One song. You got to pick one song.
Yeah. Oh, easy done. So, in my music searching endeavors, Isaac Dunbar is a very good up and coming artist.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so which Isaac Dunbar song?
Isaac Dunbar, Ferrari. He has he has a lot of fun songs. He has a lot of fun music videos on YouTube if you want to check him out and get into a little YouTube hole. But
you described him to me as Lauv meets Troye Sivan, I think.
Oh, and I still think that. I love Lauv, love Troye Sivan. Lauv just dropped a new album. I think Troye is going to have a new one this year that he already released a song from, and it's really good. And I think Isaac Dunbar, he's young. He has a lot of good songs out. I think he's going to do big things.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was so much fun. So where can people find you on the internet? Do you have any socials that people could look you up on?
I do. You can find me at the Matt Parade on Instagram. I have a Twitter. I don't I mostly use it to lurk and get the news at this point.
That's fair,
I'm not particularly interesting, but I post some nice photos on Instagram from time to time, so you can find me there.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Listeners, thank you, Molly.
Oh my God, this was so fun. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to hear Matt and I talk about Cars Full of People. On our last regular episode, we talked about Let the Music Play from Cardiology. We also just had our bonus episode about Anxiety from Greatest Remixes. Next week, we'll be talking about a song from Generation RX. Thank you for tuning in. You can support the show on Anchor if you so choose. Once we get to 10 people that are supporting the show with $4.99 or more per month, I'm going to start doing monthly charitable donations. I think it's really important to give back, and there's definitely a lot of people and causes that could use it, so let me know. And anything you support on Anchor, that money, all that does is goes right back into helping me make sure I can make the show the best it can be, making sure I have the right equipment, software, etc. It also helps me do things like print stickers. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You can follow the podcast at Generation GC Pod, P-O-D, on Twitter or Instagram, or look us up on Facebook. You can also follow me, Molly, at mhudelson, MHUDELSON. And yeah, if you want to chat, you can also shoot me an email, generationgcpod@gmail.com. Talk to you next week.